When Alex stepped onto the gravel driveway of 217 Cedar Lane, the world seemed to hold its breath. The house, with its white clapboard walls and a porch that caught the golden afternoon light, looked like a postcard from a simpler time. It was only a handful of blocks from the park where children chased each other across the asphalt, and the scent of cut grass mingled with the distant hum of the city that Alex had left behind. He had traded the cramped apartment and the endless noise for a quiet street and a breath of open air. But he carried with him an unspoken longing for the thrill of the road. That longing had manifested itself in the sleek, matte black vehicle that now sat in the rear of the driveway, a custom model built by a small but passionate group of designers in a garage that smelled of motor oil and ambition. For Alex, the car was more than a means of getting from point A to point B. It was a sanctuary, a quiet companion that carried him through sleepless nights and lazy mornings alike. It never became a siren or a shout. It never revved the engine at the hour of darkness, never chased after the sound of a neighbor's alarm, and it never pushed beyond the gentle limits set by the neighborhood. It was a quiet presence, a constant that anchored his restless mind. Yet, even though the car kept its engine at a modest pace, it began to stir feelings in the eyes of those who watched it from across the street. The HOA president, Karen, saw a threat not in the speed, but in the very presence of such an exotic machine in their peaceful community. She was a woman with a reputation for being meticulous about curb appeal and an unwavering guardian of the quiet that defined Cedar Hollow. Her eyes had followed Alex's car since the first week, and she could not help but feel that a vehicle of that caliber might unsettle the fragile balance of the neighborhood on a crisp Tuesday morning, when the sky was a clear, unblemished blue. Alex found a folded sheet of paper that had slipped into the rear window of his car. It was not a polite request, nor was it a mere suggestion. The paper was thick, the ink dark and formal, the words written in a neat, almost regal script. It bore a heading that read "Community Notice" and an opening that addressed Alex by his full name, as if it were a formal declaration of a legal matter. Karen, the HOA president, had taken the time to write the letter herself, her handwriting precise and unyielding. The content of the letter was straightforward, yet damning the presence of a high-end vehicle, such as the one Alex owned, posed a threat to the safety of the children who played in the neighborhood. It was a potential source of noise, and it violated the very essence of the peaceful living environment that the community had cultivated. The letter demanded that Alex remove the vehicle from the premises within a 2-week period or face further action from the board. Alex could feel the words hit like a sudden gust of wind. He laughed out loud, a sound that echoed through the quiet lane and seemed to shake the trees a little. He had never imagined that his beloved car could become a source of contention. He thought of the quiet hum of the engine, the way it seemed to breathe with each gentle turn of the wheel, and he could not believe that anyone could see it as a danger. He remembered that the car had never surpassed the speed limit set by the neighborhood, that it had never produced a sound louder than a whisper, and that it had never been used as a means of intimidation. He had known the car for years. It was a companion that had helped him get through nights when the city felt too loud. The HOA bylaws, as Alex had read them, were silent on specific types of vehicles, but they spoke about the general character of the neighborhood and the importance of maintaining a quiet environment. Karen's letter seemed to ignore those provisions, focusing instead on the car's aesthetic and the perceived threat it posed. Alex could see that Karen had perhaps read a different set of guidelines, or had formed an opinion that was not based on the documented rules. He had heard stories from neighbors about Karen's own driving habits, about how she had once taken her Range Rover on a speed run past the park while shouting at squirrels, a scene that sounded like a comedic sketch. But he also knew that she was a woman who cared deeply about the community and its reputation. The following week, the local police arrived at Alex's doorstep. A uniformed officer with a calm demeanor and a notebook in his hand. He asked Alex to show him the footage and to explain what had happened. Alex handed over the video, and the officer watched it attentively. The officer's eyebrows lifted as he saw the scene unfold. Karen, a woman in a floral housecoat, pounding a hammer into the metal of the car. Her face a picture of fury and conviction. He did not see a mask or gloves. There were no disguises. He saw a woman who had taken it upon herself to protect the neighborhood, but whose methods had been extreme. The officer spoke to Alex, saying that the evidence was damning, that Karen had indeed vandalized the car, and that she could not justify her actions as a means of enforcing community rules. He also mentioned that the car had never crossed the speed limit, that the car's engine had never produced a noise louder than a whisper, and that Karen's actions had violated the law. Alex and the officer went to the neighbor Denise, who had been the first to call the police. The officer asked her for her statement, and she provided a clear description of what she had seen Karen, with a hammer, slamming into the car, and how the scene had taken place at night. The officer thanked Denise for her testimony. He also spoke to a few other residents who had witnessed the incident from a distance, and they all confirmed that they had seen the same. The officer recorded the statements on his notebook and thanked Alex for providing the evidence. He assured Alex that the matter would be investigated further. The judge's office was a quiet Austera room. He had a long table, a leather chair, a desk covered with files. He had a calm demeanor. He had a keen eye. He listened to Alex's case, and he listened to Karen's. He listened to the evidence. He listened to the witnesses. He listened to the logs. He listened to the testimony. He was patient, but he was firm. He knew that the case was not about the car, but about the right of a homeowner to enjoy his property and to live in peace. He also knew that the case was about the right of a community to maintain its standards and its safety. He had to balance the rights of the homeowner and the rights of the community. He had to decide. When the judge asked Karen if she had intentionally damaged the car, Karen's voice was steady. She said, "I did it because the car was a threat." The judge, however, said that the law did not allow her to do that. The judge's statement was clear. He had decided that Karen would be liable. The judge also took a look at the new car. The new car was a matte black vehicle, same model, but with custom red calipers and a subtle inscription. The judge felt that the new car represented a new beginning. The judge felt that the new car was a symbol of a new beginning for the community. The judge's final statement had a lasting impact on the community, reminding everyone that power, when exercised without restraint, can lead to unintended consequences. Alex wrote a series of posts on the blog that covered the aftermath of the court case, the community's reaction, the changes in the HOA board. He talked about how the new board had appointed a new president, someone with more compassion and less strictness. He talked about how the new board had created a committee to ensure that the community's rules were clear and that all residents could understand them. He talked about how the community had grown stronger after the conflict. He talked about how Alex's new car was a reminder that he had overcome adversity. He talked about how he had learned to use his experience to help others. He also promised to keep the community informed of any future development, to keep the dialogue open, and to remind everyone that the right to live in peace is not a privilege, but a right. He thanked his attorney, his lawyer, his friend Denise, and his neighbors. He thanked everyone who had supported him. He thanked the judge for his wisdom. He thanked the community for learning that a car could be a symbol. A reminder, he concluded that the story was about more than a car or a dispute. It was about the power of community, the importance of respect, and the need for accountability. He also said that the story was about how an ordinary person could stand up for what is right. The story ended with a simple call to action. Please like and subscribe for more stories about everyday battles and the quiet victories that follow.